all of us have that one book. The book that you read and you realize when you're finished that you have experienced a psychic change. Something is different in you. And for me, that book is The Giver. I remember reading it for the first time and finishing it and just kind of letting out this heavy breath like, whoa, wow.
I read The Giver aloud to our sons, our twin sons. They were probably about 11 or 12 years old when I read it to them. And at that time, I was looking for books. They were brown boys, and so I often tried to look for books that would reflect their experience. What I found with The Giver is that it did reflect their experience. Jonas is not an Indian kid, and yet his struggle to fight conformity, his coming of age, his quest to keep old memories alive, all of that were things our boys were going through.
The first time I read The Giver by Lois Lowry, I didn't finish it. I actually closed it and put it back on my nightstand because I was so unsettled by it.
The first time I read The Giver, my dad actually read it aloud to me, and then I read it in class the next year, and then I read it on my own the year after that. And clearly, it made a huge impression on me because once a year was absolutely mandatory reading.
The Giver is the only book that I remember reading from middle school. It was a book the one book that we all read. We read it together as a class, and I remember it was the only time in my whole middle school life where the book that we were reading in class was taken to the lunchroom. Usually the lunchroom was reserved for football and baseball and girls, but that was the first time and the only time where I remember that what was happening in the book was something that we felt we needed to talk about after class.
The images in the book were so haunting for me that they both compelled me to continue reading eventually and also made me really think how important it was for kids to read about things that are unsettling so that they can start to process for themselves what would a world be like with these kind of constraints.
My memory of reading The Giver for the first time is a wonderful one. We got an ARC of The Giver at the Texas Library Association conference, but there was only one ARC left, and there were two of us. And so my colleague Rosemary Chance took it, and we decided we would read it aloud to one another as we drove home from San Antonio. So we get in the car, we're driving, Rosemary starts the reading, we decide we need to stop for lunch. We get out of the car, we go into the restaurant with the book in hand. Over lunch, we read it back and forth to one another with people in the restaurant staring at us thinking, why are they reading aloud to one another? We got all the way back to Rosemary's house, I think, and we had not finished the last 3 chapters. And Rosemary said, well, I'm holding it, so I get to take it for the weekend. And she did. Reluctantly, I let her take it for the weekend. We got to work Monday morning. She came rushing into my office, threw the book down on the desk and said, drop everything, finish reading it. We need to talk.